I have been waiting for a keyboard like this. For a productivity audience, this is like the holy grail. A keyboard that gives you a compact design while maintaining a full-size number pad and even providing some additional customization options as well. Where other keyboards may try to achieve this by squishing everything together and cannibalizing part of your zero key, Keychron added one additional row to provide some separation between your number pad and the rest of the board, and the result is beautiful. This keyboard is perfect for the work-from-home warrior who relies on that number pad but wants to save as much space as possible. Even better, it's got enough gaming chops to easily transition from work to play at the end of your day. Productivity, gaming, number crunching, this thing has it all. For transparency, Keychron did send this keyboard over to me for review, but had no say in how I chose to cover it or in the contents of this review. They find out my honest opinions at the same time that all of you do, so now let's jump into the build and design. This keyboard is part of Keychron's Max lineup and is known as the K17 Max. This is their top of the line for low profile keyboards, and the design here carries forward from other successful models that I've reviewed, like the K3 Max. The design is the same, the colors are the same, everything carries through perfectly. The case has a thin black aluminum top with an ABS plastic bottom. All of their low profile models are incredibly thin and have very little bezel around the outside of the keys, but this really stands out as this board is so much larger than the other ones I've looked at. Because the case is thin, it's not the most sturdy, but it's incredibly light for its size, weighing in at just 690 grams, about 15% lighter than the larger MX Keys S by comparison. The low-profile design mimics a typing experience that you'd find on a laptop, making it perfect for someone who transitions back and forth between working on the go and working at a desk. At the same time, the Gateron Low Profile 2.0 switches mean that you get a satisfying amount of key travel that you'd expect from a mechanical keyboard. It's the best of both worlds. The typing angle is quite low, but there are two-stage adjustable feet to make a change if you prefer. You can move between the angles of 2, 4, and 6 degrees. The colors are classic Keychron design with 2 shades of gray plus an orange escape key, which can either be swapped out to gray if you don't want that pop of color, or it can be joined by an included orange enter key to give you a bit more color. Overall, this design remains one of my favorites in the market today. It's simple, solid, and consistent. Now let's take a closer look at this unique key layout. One of the best things about Keychron is that they make just about any size keyboard you could possibly want. Everything from a really tiny 65% layout all the way up to full size and quite literally everything in between, including some really unusual layouts and also some ergonomic designs as well. This particular layout was something I'd never seen before. Up until this point, if you wanted to have a number pad, you typically had 2 choices. You could get a regular, full-size 100% board, or you could go compact with what is typically called a 96% model, where you would sacrifice part of your zero key in order to maintain full-size arrow keys. And a perfect example of this is the Newfie Air 96, which I've reviewed on the channel in the past. This Keychron layout strikes a perfect balance between those 2 models. It features a full-size number pad with that traditional oversized zero key, plus some additional keys to customize above the number pad based on your needs. It provides all those benefits that you get on a traditional size keyboard without all the extra desk space, and it's got virtually all of the compact space savings of a 96% model, but without losing that full-size number pad. From a size perspective, it's about 1.5 inches smaller than most full-size keyboards, and perhaps more impressively, it's just barely larger than those compact 96% models, which squish everything together and lose out on that full-size zero key. At the end of the day, this layout is basically just Keychron's K3 Max with a number pad slapped onto the side, but I'm 100% here for it. If you compare this layout to the K3, you'll notice there are 2 big differences. First, the end key is removed, which could be an issue for some, though Keychron was nice enough to pre-program function plus home to serve as your end key. The second change swaps the location of the RGB key and the delete key. This one is less consequential, but it's an interesting thing to note. Above the number pad sit 3 keys that have symbols on them, a circle, a triangle, and a square. These keys can be customized with Keychron's Launcher web app to serve whatever purpose you want, including using custom macros. Personally, I experimented using them as video editing controls, which worked fairly well. You could mimic features on other keyboards like the MX Keys, having one launch the calculator app, for example, or serve as a lock for your computer. The sky is truly the limit, and it's fun to have keys which are labeled with shapes rather than with words, so they feel like they're specifically designed for customization, rather than taking a key with one purpose and then kind of confusingly making it behave differently. Next to those keys sits a knob, which serves as a volume control by default, but can also be customized to do whatever you want. Finally, this K17 layout is also available in an ISO model for those members of my audience who utilize that setup. Typing on the K17 Max follows right along with other members of the Keychron Max lineup. It's not an unbelievable experience, but it's good, solid, and consistent. The keycaps are a great shape and are made of double-shot PBT to resist shine. The switches are Gateron Low Profile 2.0 switches, thankfully not the new Keychron branded ones that I've had some issues with before. You can get linear red, tactile brown, or clicky blue switches. Typically, I've gone with browns on Keychron boards, but since today many new keyboards are released really only with linear switch options, I decided to mix it up and go with the reds here, and I was actually pleasantly surprised. Before I go into the details, here is a typing test along with a comparison to the K3 Max with the brown switches. This board with the red switches is great. Whereas the K3 with the browns can feel very hollow, I don't get that nearly as much with the red switches here. Typing is satisfying with a better sound on the reds. They're smooth and quiet. The spacebar is a little bit rattly, but is slightly better than my K3, which could be the reds versus the browns, or could just be some slight differences in the individual board's construction. Compared to the K2 Max, a non-low profile board that I reviewed recently, it is substantially better. Overall, most people would have no issue typing on this board at all. It is a very solid experience. Beneath the keys sit individually addressable north-facing RGB backlighting. However, the Max models do not have shine-through keycaps, meaning that you'll only get lighting from around the keys. If backlighting isn't as important to you, there is a white backlight-only version, which can save you a bit of money. More about pricing later. Backlighting is controlled through a dedicated RGB button on the keyboard and through a series of keyboard shortcuts. You can also control it through the Launcher web app if you want to make something more custom. For connectivity, there's a switch on the back to swap between 3-device Bluetooth, the included 2.4 gig USB receiver, and a wired mode. All major operating systems are supported, and you can swap between Windows and Mac modes with a switch on the back as well. This is pretty much everything you could want on paper. However, Keychron continues to have challenges with their Bluetooth. I've covered this multiple times in the past, and there are lots of threads out there on the internet about it, so I won't go into too much detail today, but in testing this board specifically, I had major issues pairing it to my M2 MacBook Pro. It just so happened that I wound up getting a new M4 MacBook Pro while testing this keyboard, since my old one got in a fight with a cup of water. Solid. Pairing it to that brand new one worked immediately and without issue, so I don't really know at this point what to say about the connectivity issues, just know that you might have issues with a board like this. On the bright side, wired mode is always available and supports 1000 Hz polling rates for those that want to game on this board. The 2.4 gig USB receiver also supports 1000 Hz polling and importantly is only available on Keychron's Max lineup. So if you are at all concerned about those Bluetooth issues, make sure you stick to a Max and not to a regular model or to a Pro model. It's not that much more expensive typically, and it's great to have that receiver as a fallback plan just in case. Keychron also ships a USB-C adapter for the 2.4 gig receiver to get it closer to your board to reduce latency. So if you're really wanting the best wireless connection possible, you can utilize that. Another challenge with using Keychron keyboards connected over Bluetooth specifically is with sleep to wake. Just like with previous Keychron models, once this board goes to sleep, it does take a while to wake back up. Thankfully though, that finally has a real solution with the latest firmware release. In order to get the latest firmware and to take advantage of this change, you need to use Keychron's customization software, which I've mentioned is called Launcher. The web app is accessible on any operating system and lets you fully customize your keyboard. It is genuinely a really nice app. Though if you don't like it, the board does have full QMK and VX support, so you can use other software as well. The firmware update is version 1.1.0. It brings a few different features. Most notably for me, it gives you the ability to set a specific timer for auto backlight off and for auto sleep. This is awesome for either saving battery life or for saving your sanity. Keychron keyboards historically had issues with going to sleep quick and waking up slow. Now you can set it accordingly to either prioritize sleep and thus save battery, or prioritize remaining awake and avoid the annoyance of having to wake your keyboard with tap after tap after tap. This is honestly a great update. I did check, and this update was also available on my K3 Max, but it wasn't available on my K3 version 3, so it may be a Max series exclusive, but I'm not certain. Other changes include the addition of per key RGB controls, so you can create a fully custom RGB layout. And finally, there's two slightly more nuanced changes. First is a setting for debounce, which is essentially a number of seconds needed for the key to reset before registering another press. It's really only needed if you're big into gaming or if you're having issues with your keyboard registering duplicate presses as you type. Finally, there's snap actions, and fair warning, this does get a little bit into the weeds. Snap actions is similar to things like snap tap, if you've heard of that, which have been rolled out on many new Hall effect keyboards which use magnetic switches. They're designed specifically for gaming and have been controversial in the gaming community and have also been banned in some competitive games due to the advantage that they can provide. Keychron's snap actions gives you access to those types of features, but since these are non-magnetic switches, they're limited to just one setting called last key priority, or LKP. This gives you the ability to keep one key pressed down and have a specific other key pressed and released, and then go back to having that initial key pressed without lifting that finger first. This can be very useful when you're strafing or moving back and forth in a competitive shooter, for example. Typically for a move like that, I'd have to switch back and forth, pressing one key and then pressing the other. But now with this enabled, what you can do is keep one key pressed down, just press the other one, which will start moving you back. And as soon as you release it, you'll be back going the other way. That's essentially the gist of it. Hopefully that helps the 1% of people out there who don't already know about it and actually would care. For everyone else, we can move on. This keyboard has a rechargeable 2000 milliamp hour battery, which is woefully undersized at this point in the market. Most competitors have been utilizing batteries twice the size and getting twice the battery life. If you run the K17 Max with the backlighting off, you can expect just 100 hours of use. With backlighting on, you'll get about 50 hours, which is pretty painful, and this means that you'll likely be charging this keyboard about every week. At that rate, many of you will probably choose to just leave it plugged in. For pricing, the K17 Max starts at $95 for the white backlight version, $105 for RGB, and $115 for RGB with hot swappable switches. The pricing is actually $5 less than the original launch price, which is crazy to say amid the current tariff-driven trade uncertainty where we see other brands like Logitech making sweeping price increases across half their lineup. Ultimately, this is a very competitive price for such a full-featured board in such an interesting layout. Compared to the K3 Max, which also is now $5 cheaper than at launch, the K17 Max is just $5 more at each level. So $5 to add on a number pad and a knob and some customizable keys is a pretty great deal. This particular keyboard is not the only Keychron model that leverages this unique layout. For comparable ones, there is the similarly priced K17 Pro, but that one's fully sold out on Keychron's website, and I wouldn't recommend it personally because it doesn't have that included 2.4 gig USB receiver to help with any potential Bluetooth issues. On the more premium side, there is the Q5 lineup, which has a very similar design with just some spacing added around the keyboard. It uses full-size switches rather than the low-profile ones you find here, and because it's also a full aluminum construction, it costs a good bit more. It starts at $220 for the Q5 Pro, $240 for the Q5 Max, and $250 for the Q5 HE, which has magnetic switches. There's also a regular Q5 that starts at $195, but interestingly, that one doesn't have the complete number pad. Compared to these more premium offerings, I think the K17 Max offers a much better value, and I love typing on low-profile keyboards personally. Now let's talk about our differentiators and deal breakers. First, we have the key differentiator of this keyboard, which is definitely the layout. I'm sure there's other keyboard brands out there that have similar designs to this that I just haven't seen yet. If not, there definitely should be soon. This key layout is perfect for a compact, productivity-focused setup. The low profile design is excellent, with Keychron's specific implementation being slimmer than nearly any other brand on the market. The typing experience is also good, not as excellent as some that we've seen lately from brands like Newfie or the latest from iQnix, but still very good nonetheless. The PBT keycaps are a joy to type on. The included 2.4 gig USB receiver comes in clutch with the Max lineup specifically. It's QMK and VIA compatible, plus you can use Keychron's own launcher software as well. Finally, there's optionality with Keychron that you don't get from a lot of other brands, allowing you to save money by foregoing things like RGB and hot swap if you wish. For deal breakers, there are the Bluetooth issues that sadly continue to exist. The battery is undersized and therefore the battery life is on the lower end of the competition. There's no shine through on the keycaps for the backlighting. And finally, although I really do love the layout, it is missing a couple keys like end or insert, which may be critical for someone who's used to having absolutely everything on a full-size keyboard, though you can always use those custom keys to maybe fill in the gaps. These sacrifices are all worth it in my eyes, but only you can make the final call of whether it makes sense for you. Let me know what you think about this keyboard in the comments below. There's affiliate links down there to support the channel if you want to make a purchase. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.